The Wisconsin Migrant Education Program is pleased to be talking today to Javier Acevedo. Javier is the Anti-Human Trafficking Outreach Specialist and Victim Advocate at UMOS and is here to share some information regarding his services and how that connects with our migrant education program.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be doing this with you all. My name is Javier Acevedo. I am one of 3 victim advocates with the UMOS Wisconsin Regional Anti-Human Trafficking Program. It's a really long name. You can call us UMOS RAP for short. But we operate out of the UMOS Latina Resource Center here out of Milwaukee, which serves victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, as well as human trafficking. We are a statewide initiative, at least a trafficking initiative here. The UMOS RAP program is a statewide initiative that is able to work with service providers around the state, law enforcement officials around the state on assisting victims and survivors of human trafficking, both sex and labor trafficking. We serve anyone. We particularly serve for national victims of trafficking. We have sort of our area of forte. But we serve all, both foreign national and domestic victims of both sexual exploitation as well as labor trafficking. We provide advocacy. We also provide technical assistance to organizations around the state, not necessarily victim service organizations, but anyone who might be potentially working with a survivor and need that extra assistance on how to work with them or how to facilitate a proper law enforcement reporting, how to further screen. We're able to provide that level of technical assistance. And then we offer, of course, training around the state of Wisconsin as well at no cost to the requesting organization. And those trainings can vary from basic to more advanced trainings on how to screen, how to conduct outreach, as well as how to provide advocacy to survivors of both sex and labor trafficking. Aside from some of the more basic services that we can offer, we do have a 24-hour support line. Individuals can access that 24-hour support line, which is 414-389-6510. To get in contact with one of the advocates here at the UMOS Latina Resource Center. And that line actually caters to survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, as well as human trafficking as well. What services does your program provide, and how should regional coordinators and other EP staff access those services? Some of the most basic services that we can provide individuals and have provided individuals, UMOS itself works with and has specialized over the past 55 years. We're celebrating our 55th year this year in working with migrant families around the state. In particular, we also have services in place for those migrant families, which can range from, of course, education to childcare, employment and training as well. Individuals can access those services by calling our general inquiry line, which is our 389-6000. Individuals who are working with potential victims should automatically connect with an advocate here at the center. And the best way to do that would be through our 24-hour support line, which would be the 414-389-6510. Individuals that encounter, for example, if an individual through the migrant educational program should have confirmed indicators for potential human trafficking, including both sex or labor, that educator, that individual working with that potential victim should reach out to the UMOS RAP program. We could do and conduct an over-the-phone screening, or we could actually respond and send out an advocate to respond to the situation and help assess further. Should an individual encounter a migrant worker or a family member of a migrant worker who's experiencing work-related abuses, Those individuals are also encouraged to reach out. We've seen over the past years that sometimes those employer-related abuses can sometimes tie to some more deeper and deeper rooted abuses that can potentially cross over to forced labor and labor exploitation and trafficking. So we have a specialty in working with labor trafficking victims around the state. I would go on a limb in saying we're probably one of the very few organizations around the state that are able to work with survivors of labor trafficking. If individuals encounter a minor, for example, we've also been seeing cases of minor victims coming to Wisconsin, being placed with family members here, and those minors having and possessing documents, for example, Health and Human Services certification letter indicating that that individual is a minor victim of trafficking. Those individuals qualify for our services with those eligibility letters. Those individuals should be screened out and referred as well, or encouraged to reach out as well. A huge part of what we do as well through our coordinated outreach services is reach out to migrant families with regards to not just trafficking, but also sexual violence in general, keeping in mind that migrant workers are often very susceptible to being engaged or forced, right, to accept sexual or non-consensual behaviors or sexual conduct, I'm sorry. And those individuals should also be encouraged to reach out. We do have a program called LAV, which is our Legal Assistance for Victims Grant. And that program allows us to work with survivors of sexual violence who were assaulted by an individual who was a non-intimate partner. And we've been able to provide free legal assistance to those individuals who would identify, right, as a survivor of someone, as a survivor who experienced sexual violence from a non-intimate partner. In this case, a relative, a friend, a blind date, so on and so forth, right? The individual was of a non-intimate nature. But yeah, so those individuals are definitely encouraged to reach out as well, because we do work with attorneys around the state that could help assess for further protections as well as immigration remedies as well. Anyone is eligible for our services should they be identified by a service provider or a law enforcement as a victim or a potential victim. We're able to serve potential victims for an X amount of time before we can make or have to make a determination, right? Are they trafficking, or is it, something along the lines of sexual violence, or is it just labor exploitation, or is it just an employer-employee dispute, right? A civil lawsuit kind of deal. So we have to make sure that we screen and work with those individuals to where we can try to identify as much as we can in that time frame to be able to have that fully confirmed status. So individuals who might not be presenting full, strong indicators of trafficking qualify for a period of time. Individuals who have been referred by law enforcement as victims of trafficking, individuals who have those certification letters from OTIP, which is the Office of Trafficking in Persons, or the Department of Health and Human Services as well issues those certification letters. Those individuals would also be eligible for our services. For national undocumented or not undocumented also qualify for our services. And those individuals are strongly recommended to reach out for services. It's important to understand that that students can also find themselves in situations where they might be encouraged to work, right, in an effort to help their parents pay off debts or so on and so forth, which is why I feel it's important to engage in this conversation with DPI and initiatives like this, because it's not uncommon for those youth, right, to engage in work-related endeavors in an effort to help the family out. It's a matter of fact, it's a cultural thing for a lot of us, Latinos in particular, to have, um, to engage in those kind of conditions, right? In an effort to help out the family, especially if you're of age, right? We know that under those same conditions, individuals can also find themselves in those very brutal and sometimes inhumane, right, kind of labor conditions, which is why it's also important to have these conversations with these youth, right, who are coming with their families for a short period of time. It's their transient nature that makes them extremely susceptible and vulnerable to sexual violence, as well as domestic violence, as well as human trafficking, right? What we've seen over the past years is that trafficking is very prevalent in a lot of migrant worker stories. If it didn't happen now, it happened 10 years ago with meeting a contractor who promised and offered them an amazing paying job, instead found themselves in really poor working conditions, or working in really poor conditions, or even living in really poor and inhumane conditions as well. So, and that's another side of it all as well. So if you know of anyone that is being provided housing by the employer who is bringing them here to work, and the housing isn't, livable, or they're being forced to live in that house with, 20, 50 other people, then those individuals should definitely reach out to our support line as well, so that we can initiate a response or coordinate a response. As I mentioned before, undocumented survivors of trafficking or potential victims of trafficking are definitely encouraged to reach out. We can definitely assist in assessing whether or not those individuals are eligible for some of those trafficking-related immigration remedies. For example, a continued presence, or the non-immigrant T visa. Which is something they would qualify for as a result of the trafficking that has happened to them, right, as a victim of crime here in the U.S.
Our regional coordinators that interact with a number of teachers and other staff that are working to support students. I'm wondering if do you do training for regional coordinators and their staff? So if they're thinking that they're not sure of how they would even know if they should be concerned, or, they are hearing things, but they don't know if that, if those are flags or not, are you available, or is UMOS available to provide support to do training for those staff members outside of working directly with the families, so that they would kind of know what to be looking for?
Absolutely. Human trafficking is something that can present itself in very different and very unique ways and situations. It's a great question, because we do offer free training at no cost to, the requesting organizations. Our trainings are tailored to that requesting organization and the discipline of the individuals engaging in those trainings. So we've been able to train law enforcement around the state, medical providers. Josh has been doing some amazing work with training medical providers around the state, as well as mental health providers. We've trained volunteer-based groups. We've trained refugee and resettlement groups on both sex and labor trafficking. So yeah, you could definitely reach out to myself or my supervisor, Joshua Beaton, who couldn't be here today, but we would definitely be in a position to come out and train. We could also host a training here at UMOS. Should anything not be cleared up with the whole safer at home order and the training needs to happen, sooner than that, we can also coordinate something by a webinar to try and engage those coordinators. It is April. We're already receiving migrant families. I mean, they're already arriving throughout the state of Wisconsin. So we would definitely be in a position to organize that with you all.
Great, thank you so much. We are going to put Javier's contact information up on the screen. So please feel free to reach out to Javier if you have questions or concerns, or are not sure if you have concerns. Again, Javier's contact information, phone number is 389-6512. Thank you again, Javier, so much for sharing this really important information with us.
Thank you.